Right, we're back on the game. So last time we was having trouble with this, and I tested all of this without actually putting the beginning path at the start. And in documentation I've seen on the internet, doesn't actually have that at the very start of it, which probably baffled me a bit when I discovered what had actually gone on. So if I run that now, it should do everything as it was supposed to, which was to every frame it would draw it and it would delete the previous frame. All I've got to do now is remember how this works, because it's been a little while since the last recording. Cool, so unload the core.scene. Okay. Scene dot layers. I think it's layer 2. Actors. Actor 0. Dot position. Dot x. Oh, it's still saved in there from last time. Okay. So it still moves with it. And now it clears it properly without actually drawing white to the background. The other way would have worked, but you would have had to have drawn an alpha channel rectangle rather than just a solid white rectangle. But I don't know how the canvas works on the back end, so I don't know if that is actually a better way or a worse, probably a worse way, I'd imagine, but it might have actually been a better way. Doesn't matter now because we've got this working. Today I wanted to work on the input system, but first I wanted to do some housekeeping with this folder particularly. So we have all these scripts, but they're very unstructured, and when we come to do the editor side, we need them to be in a way that we can access them pretty quickly and using some sort of structure that we can actually parse through a directory, which is going to be a lot faster than having to actually ask you every single time which script you're trying to access, essentially. So I'm going to call the first folder core, and we're going to put everything's essentially going to go in here so far because we've done nothing but other than core stuff. Even this render square is going to go with it. We need to do properties, and we're going to put all our property stuff in here, so this will be the property and the render square. I'm going to do the core here, core layout and scene will just stay, server call. I'm actually going to put that back up to the top, and the vector will just be, we'll put it in math. Because that's essentially what vector is supposed to be doing. So the rest of them should be alright, and this now. And we just need to go to index.html, and none of this will exist in the files anymore. I'm just going to go through and not load them because they don't exist. The server call is still on this level, so I'm going to go core slash for everything. Layers. Property will not be at the core, it will be under core slash property. Too many slashes. And This will also be on property. I'll put this under math now. Right, so this should still work now, it's looking at different directories instead of the base directory. Shouldn't be a problem. Let's just refresh the page, never mind. Okay, looks like we've got a problem. If Opera ever decides to actually work. Look at the console, what's happened here. Red square is not defined. So, did I put it in the property folder? Game property core / no, it's properties, which is better. You'd think, even though I'd wrote it about 5 seconds before I wrote that, I'd actually remember the name of it, but I didn't. And that's a very common thing with me. Right, I also wanted to change up how the property works, because off camera I've been messing around with a bit of the coding and on Mac, so I know this works for extending, and I'm going to have particular ways of extending things. I'm building a custom extension system, and there's a few other things that I need to make sure. Last time I did say about it, but I didn't change it, so I'm going to change all this to vars, just while it's in my mind to do so. And I think that's the only one here. So anything at the top level should be a var, and everything that's in a scope should be a let. And this will also give us a chance to put everything back into this editor, so we can actually not have to go to the Explorer every time I'm looking for a property or whatever I'm using. Render square, var, and wherever. We're going to do something else with this now. I'm actually going to change this to base property interface. That's what I'm going to call it. And then if you put something down here like this, we're going to actually create a static, which means you can always access it. As long as you put this property interface at the start, you can always access this function. And we're going to put the child in here, child class, and we're going to do let temp class, or temp child equal new child class, and we're going to forget exactly what I did. I'm pretty sure I needed a parent, yep. TMPP equals new property interface, because that's what I'm extending. So I need a reference to that class. So now if this actor does not exist in the property we need to create in the property, which shouldn't need to really, but we're going to do that anyway. So do we need to do that because it's done in the actor? I believe it's already done in the actor. I guess we can always set it to null first, just in case it's not there. You can actually check whether or not it is there, or we can put it as undefined. Forget how it's gonna. Yeah, it doesn't do any checks, so we can just put it as null. So it actually has some data in it. I'm going to go if temp tmp c.actor is equal to undefined, so if it doesn't exist, then we're just going to go child class.prototype. What a prototype essentially does in this context just quickly what it's going to do. Prototype essentially goes into this, what's extending it, which will essentially be this render square, and it will be essentially adding it as if it is already, it'll be adding something like this. What this.actor would essentially appear in here, but it will be done after it's been declared. It doesn't appear, so you don't have to code it in straight away, it will do it automatically for you if you forget to put it in there, which means you can have this as very compact and easy to read, because you're not implementing every single function that is essentially doing what the parent class would be doing. You don't need to access every single thing or implement every single thing that needs to be there. So we've done the one, and we're going to do the same with the draw function. If the child does not have the draw function, then we're going to do draw function equals potential draw. Yeah, I think don't need to put brackets on it. No. And that should be good enough now. So under this, all I've got to do is go to this property interface, which I'm going to change the name of it, the name of the file. So extend, should put it as extends. And then all I've got to do is put this red square in here, and this should always be last. I've got to close this, and we've got to rename it to property interface, just to make sure we know exactly what's in that file. So render square, that should do all the, still doing all the rendering the same. I think that was everything I wanted to do for the housekeeping. So now we've got to do the input system. So I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to go file input, and I'm just going to quickly select the language as JavaScript, just so it's a little easier. And instead of doing the dot function, I'm just going to do dot input, which just means that it's going to be an instantiated object immediately, rather than having to create a new, because there's only ever going to be one instance. So it's essentially like, kind of like a static class, like declared static, and that's all it will ever be. This input is going to register every single thing that we do on the keyboard, and as we do things on the keyboard, it's going to store the information, and then we can access it later on for everything that's done within a frame. So if you press a key down, it's going to register the keys down and it's going to be stored here, and then we can access it at a property level where we just go input.getKeyDown, and it will turn true or false, and then we'll know if the key's down, and we can just make the property. So instead of having to type in this every time we want to move the x coordinate, or if we did something like +5, we could keep doing this over and over again, but that's not really going to be very good for a game or anything really, because nobody's going to have access to it. Nobody really wants to access the console, especially somebody who has never played. Nobody that is somebody that's not a developer wouldn't really want to access the console because they'd be afraid of what they'll actually be doing with it. I have made notes on the input because the input's slightly different to what I expected it to be, because for some reason what I expect to be key down they've put as key, and what I expected to be key is key down. So I'm just going to make it conform to whatever I need it to be. This is static, so I don't need to put anything in here. I want to go input to underscore key down, and I'm just going to put some of the main storage systems in, so held and key up. So when you release a key, it will trigger the key up event. Input dot on key down equals function, and this function's got to take an event, and the event is I also realised I would also need a stream, an input stream. This will be for doing text fields and other things like that need to take in a list of things you put on the keyboard, type into the keyboard. Input stream's got to be there. And I'm just going to be on the key down, I'm going to add something to the input dot underscore key down, and it's going to be the event dot key code. I'm also going to do the same thing for the key held, and I'm also going to do the same thing for the stream, except I'm going to change the code to key. That way it actually recognizes whether or not it is the, if you're holding capital or shift and then press a key, it will actually register that you actually pressed uppercase or lowercase is the difference between key and key code. Key code will represent a number that represents that key that you pressed on the keyboard, which means it would take the same number regardless of whether you hold shift or whether caps lock is on or anything like that. So input, and that is our file, input.js. The next one is input dot on key up function, and I'm going to put the event in here as well. This time we do something slightly different, or slightly similar. I'm going to put the key up event first, and after this we need to check. I'm going to just check my notes for JS arrays because I've been messing around with other like C#. I think it might be similar. I won't need to use it on the held. No, I'd only have to use it on the held. I'm actually going to do this slightly differently. I'm going to do, if event key is already in held, I don't want to write to held again. And for JavaScript that includes. And we just want to check if it is equal to false. So that should only ever be one in here. So when we lift up the key from the down position, then we need to actually eradicate the key event. Key equals true, then we want to remove it from there. I didn't put .push. So I'm pushing this to the list. So all these should have these codes pushed to the list. So this one needs to remove it from the list. And that shouldn't be pushed, that should be index of This isn't necessarily the most efficient way of doing it, but it's a way of doing it that works, or should work at least. And I need the first digit is the splice. The second digit is how many of these do I need to get rid of? It's just one. Next I need to check if they're on a frame update. So after everything's been taken into account, we need to get rid of the information. Key down should be cleared and key held should be held, regardless of what it is, and key up should also be cleared. And I haven't done the input stream yet, but that should also be cleared. And just like this, we need to put the input stream and we're just going to push whatever's been typed into it. So the key event, key, I'm just going to add that to the list. So now we've got some inputs and we need to just call these on the actual window events. Window.add event listener. Just on key. Yeah, I think it. Because usually held is key, just key, and key down is when it's just been pressed. So that key down would only be if it's pressed once. But if you put key down, it's actually held for JavaScript for some reason. I'm just changing it around. And it needs to call the on key down. And I'm just going to duplicate this and put key up because key up is correct, or at least for my estimation. But everything should work the same way as I think it should work now. Added these, and now we just need to get a way of actually accessing this information that's been stored. Key down, so I'll check on the frame itself whether or not the key has been pressed, and if the key has been pressed then it will actually say it, so return input.keydown.contains not contains, includes. Sometimes I get confused between lists and strings, and this will be just a key code, and that will return true or false, or whether it has found it or not. So we also want to put this on up, and we also want to put this on held. So now we should be able to, this should allow us to access whether or not a key has been pressed or not. So one way we could do this is just for testing purposes. Instead of having to make a new property every time we want to test something right now, we can just put it in this render square. And we're just going to put test input if input dot get key down, and it should be, I think it's 63 for the letter A. So if that key is down, input equals true. For some reason I need to do that in JavaScript. Otherwise it's checking whether or not it's defined or undefined. Although it is returning a primitive, I don't know if you need it. And we want to do the position.x, and we're just going to put plus equal 5 or something like that. Every frame we hold down A, it should move it along 5, and we might as well do it with the Y as well. And I need to just do the input here as well. So input, and that is where the input file is stored. And there's obviously going to be a problem. Because I didn't put equals function. Now we try it again. Property is not defined. Square 3. Property.call this. Yep, property obviously isn't going to exist. So now if I hold A, it should move, and if it doesn't, which it isn't, you can have a look at the inputs. Let's just have a look at the key down event. Key down holds nothing. What's happening here? Nothing is actually being deleted right now. key is pressed. Oh, it's because it's on key down, not key held, maybe. Although that shouldn't really matter. No, nothing. Key down, key up. Oh, we're just try alerting every time I press key down, so just to check it is actually again here. It's definitely important this because we can access it here. Something has gone wrong. Currently have no idea what's going on. let's try. I thought window would have worked, but maybe it's document. Okay, so this is bizarre. This works, but this doesn't. And I'm now just very, very confused. Window dot add event listener. That should work. Which it's still running off the other one, so unless the screen capture is interfering with it. Okay, so at least we've got a workaround, which is just on key press equals this, and on key up should also work now. Input is not defined. Great. Oh, okay. Just want to have a look at this, what it's typing in there. So it's 97, but the letter A then. That's what I'll just do for the number here, just to test it. Key up is not a function. Okay, so it's just push. I thought I got all of them, but apparently I missed that one. And obviously the frame is not being cleared at the moment. It's just going to go round and round forever, because we have to actually call this to clear all the information that we've added to it. Let's do that now with input.update. We need to go to core, and we need to do, we can do it start or the end. And we're just going to go from this key down to key.held. Obviously the frame rate is going to take some effect on it. So if we hold it down, holding, and stop. Okay. Frame did not get called. Did not, so what's this doing then? Strange, I put it. It's interesting why do I put that? Use the stream instead of the held. But now it should work. Or not. Held. Why is that doing the opposite? It's because we've got the stream again. Hold, let go, and it still moves. Let's just check it input stream. No, I did. It should have been input held. No. Wonder if this is not getting called, in which case that would not work. And it is being called, so that means, let's check event key is getting pushed. Event key is getting pushed and held. So get the input of it, and then we add 1 to it, and that should get rid of the what we need to get rid of. Let's check, has it still 978797, so that's not working obviously. Input.how includes event key, it's false, so if it doesn't include it, try running this on a loop. Uh, 97, 97. Should be constantly returning that, and the input should be getting shorter. So 101. If I do this again, it should just be 100. Right. So this line of code does work. For some reason this line of code doesn't seem to be working. Or it does. Strangely enough, it does work. It's confusing. So is it calling this multiple times? That's the only way I could think that it's actually somehow, or I'm calling that multiple times. Yeah, it hasn't actually got an up key event. That should be fine. The held is the A key. For some reason I decided to put the key in there instead of key code, which is why nothing's working. And if I let go now, and might be because I put the alert in, it's just jumping over it just slightly. It's the stream that needs the push event for the key, not the key code. That's strange. Apparently when it gets released it's 65, but oh. 97, 97, 97, 97, 97. When I release it's 65. Okay. I guess for the time being we can just leave it as key. We'll do all of them as keys. It's not what I wanted to do, but it just needs to work. Right now it just needs to work, and this won't work because this now needs to put an A key. Release, and it stops. Which I guess that's actually a little bit better for programming anyway. I could do something like D has a +5. Then we can do Y. So this would be S and this would be W. Or no, this would be W. This would be S because canvas coordinates are flipped, flipped in the vertical. We do this, it goes up, and if we hold down, it goes down, and if we hold right, it goes right. So now we have something that moves and something that constantly gets drawn. I'm just going to cancel all this out, and now we've got a way of using an input system. We don't have a coordinate system for the mouse, and we don't have anything which their coordinate system for the mouse is going to be a little bit trickier, because we need to set the coordinate at the top of the canvas and we need to work out where it is relative to the mouse is relative to this point. Which we've got to look for an offset, and then we've also got to look for the distance. There's something else I wanted to do here, and that is on the scene. Should it be on the layer? The layer we're going to add this stop camera. Cause no. And camera is null. We need to get camera coordinates. Or we could just do get camera. And when we do get camera, we need to just return camera. Just do camera axis or position. Did I use position or location? Because it's better to use the position. So I'm going to use camera position, and we're just going to use start camera dot position. If this dot camera is camera equals null, we're just going to return new vector. Which I might actually want to have a look at the vector, see if I can put in a vector 0 new vector and we can just grab this whenever we want it. And we need to change that up at some point because that is very vulnerable to attacks. Especially if I accidentally update 0, it's going to update every single reference I ever use for it. Camera position. So if, for instance, I wanted to use camera for something else later, maybe distance away or distance or scaling or whatever else, I can at least have a camera attribute that I can actually use somewhere like reference. Did I do anything else with this render square? We did size. We could do this dot rotation 0. Rotation, or this dot rotation equals 0 does not equal to 0. And then what I want to do is somehow grab the layer from the canvas, so I can do actor.layer and that layer should have a context, and I can do save. I'm also going to do a position as well while I'm here. Yeah, we can do so I'm having to use that. And context save. Then we need to use a transform or translate. And just put the x coordinates in and put the y coordinates in. We can do this dot rotation. It's going to take a little bit of work, I think. Just going to use this, but we've got to put rotate instead. I want to use this dot rotation. We want to convert it to degrees, so something I need to put in the maps. I can just put it in here for now. Var 2 radians equals, you know what, math times, oh, it's already in there, so I don't need to do all this. Like that. That should rotate it. Now I need to do all this back again, but in reverse. Every time I have a positive, I need to put a negative in. And finally, we need to put restoring. And if this goes wrong, we're going to lose the object itself. It's just going to move somewhere that we can't see it. Most likely. Right, we don't have anything to manipulate it right now, so we're going to have to do this the old properties dot 0 dot rotation equals 30, and that did nothing. Next time I'll get this working properly.